terms of what we've seen as the 5 big sectors, the top 5 that will be getting the lion's share of the 2018 appropriations. If we do a simple math, these 5 ministries will be accounting for close to 2 trillion or thereabout of the total. So, do you think this is the way to go to consolidate?
Well, I think that if you analyze those sectors, in terms of the projects that are to be executed, so you have the power sector, power, works and housing. We must not forget, it's about 3 ministries that's been fused into one, right? And a lot of projects, have been carried out since the beginning of this administration. The president touched on it. We have a transmission capacity that has been enhanced from about 5,000 megawatts to about 7,000 megawatts, and so many projects are ongoing. You touched on the Mambila project, which the president also mentioned that 2018 budget is going to focus on. Transportation sector, we talked about a lot of infrastructure issues that this country is currently facing. And the government has been trying as much as possible to tackle this. The 2018 budget, or even the 2017 budget, was part of the strategy that the government was trying to use, to also address infrastructure. We've seen a lot of partnership with the private sector. We note the project that is currently ongoing at the Apapa Wharf, which is a private sector initiative, in exchange for tax credit, the government is doing. Of course, the government will have to understand that a lot of private sector initiatives have to be put in place in terms of tackling our infrastructure issues. So I do not think that these sectors have too much. Transportation is a major issue for this country. We need to talk about how to develop our rail, improve our road infrastructure, even talk about alternative means of moving goods and people around. We cannot overemphasize this. So I do not think they are getting too much.
Let's take this budget to the marketplace, Mr. Owani. And let's start with you with the assumptions. The inflation, 12.4%. That's what the fiscal authorities are looking at. The central bank is looking at a single digit in 2018. Look at that for us. As far as then the exchange rate consideration for this budget as well. Let's get what you call the devils in the details.
Now, the inflation target is reasonable. 12.4% inflation target is within shouting distance. We are at 15.9 now. And I think that once we have aggregate output increasing, we will see some progress. For correction, the central bank target is 11% for 2017. And the objective over that period is to make it single digit, which means anything between 0 and 9.9. However, that is realistic. The exchange rate of 305 is not. That's the nominal rate. The effective rate of exchange today is 360 to 363. 305 is only distortionary, and that has to be addressed, because the exchange rate is a rate at which the states and the federal government is going to be converting their dollars to naira. And you are saying that the states cannot pay their salaries, yet they are being given 305 instead of 360. If you make it 360, then fiscal consolidation will take place. That's number one. But also, we must understand something which is extremely important here, that the level of growth being anticipated is 3.5%, which is quite aggressive. And if we can achieve 3.5% growth rate, I think then we would have achieved significant, the growth rate will be higher than the population growth rate, and we begin to feel the impact. So generally speaking, I think the assumptions on the price of oil is very conservative. $45 is 44% below the spot price today. The production of 2.3 million barrels, if you include condensates, is fair value. But what nobody is talking about is that this budget is silent. The budget is silent on subsidies. The subsidy is the big elephant in the room. If the numbers we hear are right, the subsidy items could be as much as 1.2 trillion naira, which is already over 20% of the entire budget. And it's about 50% of the budget deficit. So we cannot be silent on the question of subsidies, petroleum subsidies on this budget.
Robert, let's take this budget to the street. What's on the market street, I mean, for this, in terms of how do you think investors will begin to think through this budget right now as to where's the government spending money, where am I going to make, where's the likely interest rate direction will be if nothing moves at the November 2021 MPC, at least by January 2018?
Well, for us, one of the things that we've highlighted is the fact that the government is making efforts to reduce the portion of borrowing from the domestic market, and you will note that in this budget, it was even highlighted that from the current level of 79% domestic borrowing, we're going to see a gradual reduction, which is already being done, to 60%, so that foreign borrowing account for about 40%. The import of this is that the crowding out of the private sector, which we've always talked about, we're going to see some mitigation into that. If the federal government is not as dominant in the domestic bond market, especially, then even in the treasury bills market, then we'll begin to see the opportunities for the private sector to come in, and issue credits at a much more lower rate. We are expecting and looking forward to the time when we will have an active domestic corporate bond market. As we speak, we do not have an active domestic corporate bond market. What we have is the federal government dominating the space. In terms of infrastructure spending, we're going to see a lot of of the sectors on the exchange benefiting. The industrial goods sector, of course, is going to benefit from the allocation that have been given to power works and housing, and
transportation.
Of course, transportation.
That's a lot of money in there. You're looking at close to 800 billion.
Yeah. Then even from the recurrent expenditure, because if you look at the recurrent expenditure line, that's a line of expenditure that the government almost score 100%.
In terms of performance.
In terms of performance.
Because that's simply salaries and wages.
So you see, it's salaries and wages.
Once everybody gets paid.
Yes, it's salaries and wages, but the impact is that, when people don't get salaries, they can't spend.
And
when there is no spending, the economic activities will be constrained. So spending makes the economy,
It's the money answer it all thing, don't it?
Yes.
Thank you. It does. It does. Thank you very much for coming through. Robert Amatode, the head of research at Afrinvest. Bismarck Rebwani is from the CEO at Financial Derivatives. He's sticking by with us till after the break. Mr. Rebwani, grab a cup of tea very quickly or coffee and get back to Skype. We'll continue this conversation with you after the break.